Always takes a little bit of time.
Mm.
All right. I think we are on, and then I'm going to make sure we don't have this double sound.
Yes.
Good evening, everybody. Okay, I think that is all good now. Fantastic. All right. Good evening, everybody. Welcome to this special event in Thyroid Healthy Balance group. And I'm absolutely thrilled. It's my honour to have Leanne Rowbottom here tonight, who is a nutritionist with 18 years experience. She works with clients that suffer from emotional eating and binge eating, and she's a food freedom coach. And I'm so thrilled that you've come on to into my group so that we can explore and discuss all of those other emotional triggers and areas which really do link into what I do for clients, like working with thyroid. Because the thing is you know what, it's all about, we've got that link between the brain and the gut. So we've got that, and then we've got what goes on in the brain to trigger the emotional eating, which actually causes you know, from stress, and can cause more stress on the body. So then that can feed through to thyroid and other issues in the body. It's not just thyroid. But tell us more about, just for the listeners, tell us more about exactly the special niche area where you work as a coach.
Thanks, Megan. And I'm excited to be here. Thanks for having me. And I think this is a really important thing to talk about tonight because it is all interlinked, as you say. So I'm a nutritionist and food freedom coach, as you mentioned, and I help women break or rewire their brains to break the habits of emotional overeating and binge eating without dieting. So it is a habit that gets created in the brain when we repeat it a number of times. So it's kind of the premise that it's not your fault that you are stuck or feel stuck in emotional eating. You've just accidentally created a habit, and that can be from stress, as you've talked about, Megan, and past trauma, and you know, unresolved emotions, and all sorts of things. So there's a few layers to it, and that's why I work at a really holistic as well as a science-based level in my program.
Absolutely, because like with those habits that you're talking about, those neuronal pathways, you know, they can start off as little back roads. But oh wow, if we repeat over them and tread on them time and time again, they become 6-lane highways, don't they, in our brain?
Absolutely. And that's the thing, that's the hard thing with emotional eating. And I guess why a lot of people call it addiction. I'm addicted to chocolate, I'm addicted to sugar, because the dopamine hit, that feel good hormone in the brain that you get, it feels so good and it's so intense that you subconsciously, you just naturally want to do it again. And then you repeat it again and again and again when you're not feeling good, so that you can feel good instantly. And then all of a sudden you've got a habit from all that repeated behavior.
Yes, absolutely. And you know what? Searching for this dopamine hit, right? Searching, you know, it's an underlying need that's not being met, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. There's
Needing to feel good from something that gives some instant form of gratification, as opposed to looking at other more holistic lifestyle areas in your life to really bring in that warm and fuzzy feel good. So tell us more about that. There's a lot of people, I believe, in this world that are requiring more warm and fuzziness.
Absolutely. And yeah, it comes from stress, and there's the unmet needs side of things is really, you know, sometimes as humans, you know, it's proven that we need human connection, we need touch. And you know, with COVID lockdowns, for example, as we've spoken about, it's that disconnection from other humans, not receiving love. So you can look at it from an exterior perspective there. We're not getting what we need in our life. In a pleasure perspective, it can be not having enough intimacy, not having enough social connection, not laughing enough with your friends, not doing the joyous things in your life and making it all about work, for instance. And then it can go a bit deeper than that, Megan, where there's belief systems, and we all have them around, I'm not good enough, I'm not pretty enough, I don't have enough money, my house isn't big enough, or I'm not smart enough, or whatever it is. We've all got them. And that can either be, there can be some sort of deeper, bigger traumas, or there can just be some themes that you might not even be aware of, so you don't have to understand all of this, but there can be some sort of themes running all the time in the back of your mind that are actually triggering a constant stress response. So you're feeling not at ease a lot of the time, you're feeling stressed a lot of the time, and that's making you want to soothe yourself with food. And
Yes.
that's your normal, natural human thing to do.
Absolutely. And you know what? The thing is the marketing companies don't make it any easier, because we go in the supermarket and there's like a whole aisle dedicated to comfort foods,
Yeah, exactly.
So there's it's almost like, and then there's alcohol. I certainly had a lot of clients that struggled with alcohol, because especially during lockdown, which was the perfect time frame to create a well-established habit that then becomes hard to break. Because during lockdown, what happened? People were working at home, so there was all this time at home. And I've certainly been working with a lot of clients as well. So in terms of what you work with, does that apply to all those areas, not just eating, but any type of binge?
Do you mean does alcohol apply to
alcohol or sugar, or
Yeah,
yeah.
absolutely. I see a number of addictions, if that's what you want to call it, or habits that have been created. It doesn't matter. It's both terms are correct. Yeah, in a lot of my clients, there's a number of those going on. So yeah, it might be smoking, drinking, eating. There's sex addiction as well. There's lots of different things why people learn to cope.
Yeah. So in terms of where you work is really at kind of like the top end, because where I work, it could be for the same person, but it's after something has manifested. So there's been these patterns that have been repeated and repeated and repeated. And whether it's through and it may not be particularly from food, but often it is skewed by food because of the impact by the brain gut access to the mucous membrane, our lovely gut lining, which can become disrupted. And then down the track there could be some food allergies which you may not even be aware of, that are actually causing an immune response, which actually starts to damage the thyroid gland. So there's that angle. And then there's the other angle, which is coming through the adrenal glands, and that is stress. So whether the person is eating as a impulse from stress to try and feel better, or doing something else, but that stress, I mean, look, it's so, in my opinion, underrated in terms of its impact on the body as a whole, and also our organs and glands and our systems and our brain. Yeah.
You hit the nail on the head there with two things that came up then. With the long-term stress, when you go into survival mode and fear, your primal brain actually throws out urges to binge. So if you're an emotional eater or a binge eater, you just keep getting these urges that you can't control when you're in a stress response. And it happens when we're running on autopilot, just running around. You might even feel happy, but you're just running around, too busy, that we all do. And we're actually in a stress response, but you think, oh no, I'm fine. I'm not falling apart. I'm not emotional. So there's that. So your brain's actually driving you to binge eat. It's driving you to emotionally eat. And then there's just having the stress and all the thoughts going on, Then there's the element of, I just want to feel better right now. And it's not necessarily an urge, but you're just choosing to eat comfort foods, to try and feel better in the moment. So there's like a physiological aspect to it, or neurological from the brain making you binge eat. So it's not your fault. That's something that can be counteracted. And then there's the emotional aspect from the stress as well.
Yeah. And then there's that double whammy, that knock-on effect, like what you mentioned earlier, that self-dialogue. That self-dialogue, putting yourself down, whipping yourself when you do X, Y, and Z, which really doesn't help the situation. It kind of compounds it, makes it worse down the track as we go along, because really, as a whole, having a relationship with all aspects of ourselves and loving every single element of us is really the way forward in terms of healing that type of action. Would you say that that's an area that you delve into as well?
Yeah, absolutely, Megan. And that's sort of the space I've been talking in a little bit more about now, about loving your body. Because when you love your body and just love yourself enough and have enough self-worth, that you actually just naturally want to take care of yourself. It's important to you to feel good, and it's important to you to look after your body because you value how you feel. So that self-love, it's sort of getting rid of the belief systems and the judgments that you have of yourself so that you can then love yourself. So without getting out of your own way and doing the deeper work, you can't just go, oh yeah, I'll just love myself, or I just love my body. There's some deeper work that has to be done to get rid of that judgment and the self-sabotage so that you can naturally feel good and naturally want to take care of yourself.
Yeah, absolutely. You know what? I think with any type of area of health where it's taken X amount of years to manifest, there needs to be respect given to the amount of time it may take to heal, because at the end of the day, like what you said before with these neuronal pathways, they don't just occur from one or two instances. This could be a lifelong pattern that could have developed since childhood.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's why, as you say, it takes a time to undo, because it's the little comments and judgments or being bullied that create huge meaning as little kids. Before we're 7 years old, we're so malleable and our brain just starts to function from experiences that we have, and we create meaning. And then we start living our life from this meaning that we've created and, living in this stress response.
That's right. Yeah. So knock-on effect from that, in terms of where I would come in terms of the physiological and looking at the emotional, the mental, the spiritual as well, is looking at like a holistic treatment plan, utilizing herbs, like plugging the gaps with what's going on in the biochemistry, but also looking at the emotional aspect. But with what you do something really, really unique. Tell us more about the access consciousness work.
Yeah, so that's a part of my program. I've got a 7-step program. So access consciousness is all about, it's an energetic process where we use verbal processing and clearing statements to actually clear. I sort of facilitate, there's a special facilitation process that we use, and then whatever comes up, we clear it. So it's different to talking to a psychologist where you kind of talk about your problems, which is very helpful and useful as well. Everything has a time and a place. But this is different because it gets, there's an invitation to think about things in a different way. And it's like a questioning process to get you to come to your own conclusion. And then it's reframing the thought and then clearing what's holding you back. So then you feel a sense of ease and freedom, and then you can move forward in a more positive way.
Wow, that sounds really profound. And how long would this type of process take? Or does it, like, how long is a piece of string? Does it depend on the person and how entangled the emotions are in terms of what it's triggering? Like, tell us a bit more about that.
Yes, and so this is one of the techniques, or one part of the program, and it's sort of woven in to the program. And yes, it's different for everybody because everybody's got a different subconscious mind. You've got different past experiences, different traumas. So it's definitely different for other people. And yes, how long it's been ingrained for. And it's also your willingness to change too. And you might not know what that is, but if someone's a bit blocked and they have fears about changing, if they've been so binge eating their whole life, for example, if they had thyroid issues that are making them emotionally eat and they're exhausted all the time, they may not know what it's like to feel good or to feel
Yes.
different. And then it can be better. So there can be a fear of letting go. Well, I don't know what I'll look like if I stop this. What will I do with my time if I'm not thinking about food and emotional eating all the time? So there's
Yes,
this
that's
wrapped
another
up in it.
thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, and and even with thyroid or Hashimoto's or even Graves' disease, like any of these autoimmune type diseases, they put such an element of such a burden on the body. It can, a person may not know or may not remember what it feels like to really have that vibrancy, that
Yeah.
jumping out of bed, and that that element of just freedom and just feeling awesome and just that ease and grace through their life.
That's
So
it.
that can play a trick on your mind as well, because sometimes I find with some clients it's like, oh wow, I forgot how this feels. I thought the other was normal,
Yeah.
because our body has a way of adapting to a point just to keep us going, right? So
Yes.
it's almost like our brain can play tricks on us.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
I don't know if you're happy for me to share a bit about my story, but I thought if anyone's watching, like I get it, like I've had that burnout from stress
Yeah.
and then thyroid,
Tell us
and then
about
I
your
was
story.
emotional eating.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Tell us about your story, because you had you mentioned you've had a thyroid scare. You had a thyroid issue for a period of time.
Mm. Yeah, so it was back when I was running myself into the ground. I was a full-time remedial massage therapist at the time, working in Melbourne, working really long hours. I had a new puppy. I was having like 5 hours sleep every night for months on end, and I got, I lost all this weight because I was running every morning, running myself into the ground, and I ended up, I was run on stress for months and months at a time, and all of a sudden my body chemistry changed and I just put on all this weight. And I remember looking at myself in the mirror going, I've got cellulite in places I never knew that I had. And I was eating coconut butter out of the jar. I was craving sugar. And I remember just being in tears going to this naturopath going, I don't know what's wrong with me.
Wow.
And then he said, it's thrown your thyroid out. That's why you're so exhausted. You are so tired all of a sudden. You've burnt out all your cortisol levels, and now you're feeling depressed. And that's a double-edged sword. I was overeating because I was exhausted. I had
Yep.
no energy, so I was subconsciously reaching for food. And
Yep.
also I was depressed because I had no serotonin level left, which is your feel-good hormone, because
Yeah,
I'd
absolutely.
burnt it all out from being so stressed for so long. So there were no like building blocks left to make any feel good hormones. So
Yeah.
then, because I'm feeling flat, and then I'm subconsciously reaching for those sugar foods that would give me the hit, the dopamine hit.
And that's
So
why you've been eating the coconut butter out of the jar, because you're actually needing the fats, because the fats are the backbone to our hormones, right?
yeah,
So that makes
exactly.
sense. It's really interesting. I find it very, very interesting how the body knows. Like, you were just
Mhm.
going for like sugar. Okay, that's kind of quick fix stuff. But with the coconut butter, you would have been going for those monounsaturated fatty acids, and there's some saturated fatty acids in there, which help to build that steroid hormone base, right? Because you would have
Yeah,
been so low and so depleted. And I
yeah,
find it also interesting that, with our dopamine, like the backbone to dopamine is tyrosine. Tyrosine is the amino acid that is also the backbone to our hormones for thyroid.
there you go.
It's kind of interesting where you look at the biochemistry and then you look at the signs and symptoms of what's going on for someone, and you just kind of go, oh yeah, that links to that, that links to that, that links to that. And it's
Yeah,
really fascinating how the body is able to recruit from another system to get by. And it's like I kind of liken it to a pack of dominoes. It's like, okay, that one's down. What's next? We've got that. Okay, that one's down.
yeah,
What's next?
okay.
Let's just keep going until we actually friggin' crash, which is
Yeah.
what it sounds like happened to you those years ago.
Yeah, I love that, Megan. And it's so empowering. And I'm sure anyone listening right now will be going, oh my God, Because I remember that really helped when my naturopath explained to me, this is why you're eating coconut butter out of the jar. And then it sort of released the judgment I was having about that and the shame. Because I think, why am I doing this to myself? But I couldn't stop. And he said, yeah, as you just explained about, we need those good fats to create good hormones or all the hormones. So no wonder. So it's really great to have that inside knowledge to understand why I'm even doing it. It does come from a physiological angle.
Yeah, absolutely. And you know what, just slightly changing tact on that, on the whole fat story, you know, I think one of the worst things that occurred in the marketing industry was when everything came out low fat. And
Yes.
it was just marketed. Even still, I still know people that go for all the low fat, thinking that actually that's what's going to keep their weight under control, right?
Mm,
And you know, where there's low fat, there's generally high sugar. It's been
yep.
tampered with, it's been modified. It's, you know, it's kind of not whole in many cases anymore. So
Mm.
you know, but that's again more the physiological. But then I find it really fascinating where you work is more, you know, looking at all those underlying unmet needs,
Mm.
looking at, you know, really chipping down the layers to work out what's going on for that person. So helping that person self-soothe in another way.
Yeah, and there's quite a few things. It's like you could be eating because you're procrastinating. You're trying to get a pleasure hit because you don't want to do something. You're bored or you're just restless and can't sit still, but probably your body actually needs to move, not to eat something. Sometimes, you know, from an access consciousness perspective, it's actually wanting to cut off your awareness. Like you've got so much stress and so much going on, you just don't want to think about it anymore. And, you know, when we overeat or binge eat, it's actually cutting off your awareness because it just dampens everything down and numbs you out. So, you know, there's so many things. And as you say, an unmet need. If we're feeling a bit empty and unloved, or we're feeling isolated or lonely in our life, feeling disconnected or lack of intimacy, or you're having relationship problems, just not being seen and heard. Like as humans, we all want to be seen and heard and loved. It's very basic. Maybe it's in your workplace, you're not feeling appreciated. So all of those things I'm finding in my clients, especially relationships, it has a direct impact on their eating. And I find once we facilitate around the relationship, it actually begins to heal their relationship with food and their body.
Yeah, so important. We've got so many different relationships. You know, we've got our relationship with ourselves, we've got our relationships with our loved ones, and then we've
Mm,
got the collective relationship. We've got our relationship with food and different things that we do. So, you know, nurturing all aspects of those relationships is so incredibly important. And you know what? It's not something that you just do and then it's done. It's a
no.
life journey, isn't it?
And such a good point, Megan, because everyone wants a quick fix. Like we all want to feel good, and that's
That quick
okay, but
fix. That's
it's
where,
like,
you know, yeah.
yeah, it's like we have to do it long term. Like, you know, you can't if you stop going to the gym, you're going to lose your muscle mass and you'll lose your fitness. So it's like it's something that you have to do regularly. Or like meditation, if you stop doing it, it's not natural anymore and you don't get the benefit. So it's just one of those things you have to chip away at it and keep doing the self-care that's going to make you feel good.
The self-care, and it's really, I think, also just understanding that it's all about having that delayed gratification. Because
Yes.
you know, I mean, look, it's easier said than done, because when you're in it, like what you said, you've just a primal instinct, you're searching for that dopamine hit, or you know, or you maybe on a biochemical level you're not producing enough serotonin. So that's where, as a
Mm,
naturopath, we'll look at the foods, you know, the backbones that actually help to funnel through to serotonin, so B3 tryptophan, but also looking at gut health. So are you absorbing it well? What
mm,
else is coming in through the diet? Is another system or robbing that nutrients so that that's not
mm,
producing that neurotransmitter that's required? What's happening to the cell membranes? So you're
mm.
not absorbing, or you know, even the neuronal network in the brain, the actual structure, so that the communications maybe aren't firing. So there's so many levels to look at, as well
Yeah.
as the front end, like what you're talking about, which is some basic human needs like connection. like self-love,
Mm.
care. So you know what? We all need to get out and have a picnic. We all need to catch up
And cuddle each other.
and have a big hug. Yeah.
That's it.
And it's really interesting because we've actually got a very common thread with our work history, because you did remedial massage and so did I.
Yeah, we did.
And I found that a lot of my clients, especially during the lockdown, they were coming in for that human connection. They would say to me,
Yes.
I'm actually coming, like I haven't seen anyone, and I'm allowed to come and get a massage,
Yeah.
So it was like all about that touch, that human, that connectedness, and also really like feeling better and feeling good in the body. So that is one of my, just personally, probably because I have been a massage therapist in my past, is one of my go-to things when I'm feeling really strung out and I'm feeling like I'm exhausted, or I haven't, I need some nurturing. I'll go and get a massage. So that's a fantastic tip for anyone. It's just, very simple, to go and get a massage, don't you think? Maybe
Absolutely.
to have some essential oils in there and just
nothing better. I want one now.
I do too. I think I might have to book one.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's the thing, as practitioners, we also need to take care of ourselves, so that we can, be true to ourselves, looking after ourselves, so that in that cycle, we can then give out to our clients as well. So, we're talking about this, but it's, this applies to everybody, to individuals across the globe, right? Yeah, it's very, very important area. I mean, it's a great area that you're working in, Leanne. It really is. I'll have to have you in my my group. Yeah.
Yeah, it's great. This is a great conversation. And even on the self-care topic, it can be things like just getting to bed early enough, really honoring what your body needs, giving yourself some rest during the day, letting yourself sit out in the sun on your lunch break and have a cup of tea and have your sandwich outside, and taking the time to, walk the dog around the block if you need, instead of pushing through all the time, and making time for your friends and to have some quality time with your family and do the things that make you feel all warm and fuzzy and good.
Absolutely. And even just like a little, so I've got a tip that I give my clients. So I'm going to talk about my tip for whoever's listening, and then I'm going to ask you for a tip that you've got. I'm sure you've got plenty of tips for your clients as well, and for other people that are watching. But one thing, especially I've found, like with people that are working in an office, or they might be working at home, but they've got those structured hours, I always recommend to shut down the IT for lunch break. Like, none of this business eating while you're working, because what happens during that time is you're not even thinking about the food. You probably can't even taste it. You're wolfing it down, so you're not chewing properly. So therefore, you're not secreting all the salivary amylase and all the other digestive enzymes to then break down the food so that it can be well absorbed, to get your nutrients that feed back into your cells and give you great health, right? So there's that. And then there's also that tendency of more mindless eating, because you're not focusing on the food, you're focusing on your work. Also, you could potentially be in that fight, flight mode while you're eating, because you're working instead of relaxing, because we need to rest and digest to eat. So there's all of that. But then above all of that, just honoring yourself with that self-love, shutting it down and saying, you know what, I'm going out for 1 hour. Some people say half an hour. I think 1 hour is great to just tune out, recoup. And if you don't have time to get out into nature, and as long as you've got some grass or a tree, you can just go and lean your back against the tree to really ground with that nature's energy, or just lay flat on the ground outside, especially with this beautiful sun coming lately. I don't know whether you got that down in Melbourne, but certainly here we're getting some sun at the moment. Laying down and just getting some good quality vitamin D on your skin and feeling your spine on the earth. And that does wonders for stress.
Absolutely. It's like the earth just absorbs and dissipates all the stress out of your body. It's amazing.
Totally.
All
Absolutely.
about it.
In fact, I did that today. I took myself to the beach because I needed to kind of decompress from IT world. right?
Yeah.
And I could actually feel it took about an hour, and I could actually feel it all just peeling away from me. It was just amazing. So nature is, and you know what? Nature is free. It is free.
Yes.
So it's just something that we can just really do that's quite easy. We don't need to, fork out anything for that. But tell us one of your tips that you would, whether it's for lowering stress or any other aspect that we've discussed tonight.
Yeah, sure. I love the one you said about mindful eating.
Yeah.
You can use this if you are battling with emotional eating, you can actually just allow the emotional eating, which sounds weird, but you want to treat it like an experiment, get really present with what's going on and get really curious. Isn't this interesting? I wonder why I'm doing this. What emotions are coming up for me right now? What is driving me to eat this in this way, in this amount, or this type of food? So it takes all the judgment out of your emotional eating, and it's the judgment and shame of it that keeps you stuck in the habit of it. So the more you just allow and go, okay, I'm going to treat this like an experiment, not only will you gain more awareness about why it's happening, but it's going to help you break free because you'll clear the judgment of it as well. And then just expressing your emotions. So many of us in our era, Megan, I'm sure you're probably the same, where we're brought up not to express our emotions so much, like just get on with it, off you go. And so many women come to me, cry through the whole call because there's a whole lifetime of suppressed emotions and not being allowed to express the emotions. So my best advice would be let yourself cry as much as you possibly can and get it all out, because food is when we're trying to just get on with it, with stuff it down with food to try and feel better, but you actually need to release the emotions. So whether or not that is expressing it in a way, by journaling how you're feeling and be really raw and real about it, no one has to read it, or you might have to scream into a pillow, or it might be, ringing a friend and telling them exactly how you feel, just talking to someone that you really trust and really expressing yourself and allowing that instead of suppressing it with food.
Oh, that's just fabulous. That is so incredibly true, like stuffing down everything. And I love what you said just then about getting curious, because the only way we're really going to understand and learn about all aspects of ourselves and to be able to forgive all aspects of ourselves and love all aspects of ourselves is to get curious and understand what those underlying emotions are. Absolutely. That's just fantastic. Oh, it's been a pleasure having you. Have you got anything, any last comments or any last things that you'd like to say?
I mean, I love how you talk about loving all the parts of you, all the aspects of you, because that it's the judgment of ourselves that's the biggest thing that keeps us in judging our bodies, and then emotional eating and judging ourselves. So it's really, and this has been my lesson in life, or to my challenge in life, is to love all the aspects of me. So I get this stuff. I used to be stuck in emotional overeating and binge eating. So I've got personal lived experience, and I get how hard that is. And that's the greatest thing you can ever do, or the biggest gift you can ever give to yourself, is that unconditional love, and love all the aspects of you, so that you're not needing to suppress those emotions or that uncomfortability, I suppose. And you're not craving to feel good all the time, because you're just accepting things as they are and loving yourself as you are.
Absolutely spot on. It's unconditional. It's the unconditional, no strings attached. This is just you. This is raw. This is how you've turned up in the world, and to love every part of it. And in doing that, there's going to be personal growth. There's going to be personal development. There's going to be understanding. There's going to be awareness. And certainly with thyroid and manifestations, that actually turn into thyroid, often it's the disconnect between head, like brain and body. It's that disconnect, and it's all around here. It's the throat chakra, right? This fifth chakra here, which is thyroid, throat. Like often thyroid conditions, there's a hoarseness in the throat clearing, sore throat,
Like
viral
not speaking your truth, or not expressing yourself.
Absolutely. Not speaking truth, not speaking your truth, or not speaking up. Not standing your ground, all of those areas. I just find it fascinating, that whole mind, body, spirit, you know, the mental, the physical, all those aspects is really how the best, I feel the most holistic, broad picture that you can have is going to honor all those elements to really help you heal.
Oh, absolutely. You've just hit the nail on the head with all of that. It
Yeah.
has to be holistic, doesn't it? It doesn't work. There's no one bullet
There's
answer for
no one
everything.
way. There's no one quick fix. There's no one pill ever.
Mm, mm.
A pill, you know, I'm getting a bit sidetracked here, but you know, most of my listeners know that I have a little bee in my bonnet here, but you know,
Yeah.
all it does is block a receptor, right?
Yeah.
Or it numbs something down, but we need to still get underneath and do the healing.
Yeah.
And we need to respect, and when I say we, I'm talking about everybody. I'm not saying, you know, like we need to respect that sometimes there's, if it's taken X amount of time to get to a certain state of health, we
Mm.
need to allow X amount of time to get to a better place in our health and wellness moving forward, because it's a journey, you know,
Yeah.
it's a journey. We keep going and then we keep improving. And that's what makes it fun. Yeah,
Yep, there's always
embracing.
more layers, isn't there? And you
There's
get to a
always
place
more
where it
layers.
becomes,
Yeah.
it becomes easier, and then you kind of work on the next thing, and it's that constant journey. But it does get easier once you start to feel well. It starts to get easier.
Starts to get easier, but you know what? How many layers to an onion, right?
Yeah, I know. It's always more.
You got the skin, then you got the little thin bit, and then you got another bit. You know, so how many
Yeah,
layers? You know, so
yeah.
the onion's pretty big.
And it's how willing how willing you are. What am I trying to say? How deep you're
How,
willing to go.
yeah, I knew what you meant. Yeah. All right. All right. Well, that's fantastic. Oh, thank you so much for coming on. And if anyone, we're
Oh,
just going
thanks.
through via the Zoom, if anyone has any questions, please ask away. And if you'd like to get in contact with Leanne, please let me know. Leanne and I work very differently, but often working with similar clients with similar needs, but in a different way. So just let me know. And if you've got any questions, just put it in the chat and we'll get back to you.
Awesome. Thank you so much for having me, Megan. And
You're
great
very,
conversation.
you're very, very welcome. We'll see you again another time.
Yes, love to.
Okay. Bye for
Bye.
now.